Hey, what's up, everybody? It is Tuesday, February 28th, 2023, which means we are ready for this week's TNT Tuesday. All right, so in this episode, we're going to be taking a look at how to laser cut from Fusion. All right, what you're about ready to see, this is my method. This is how I do things, and I get it. There's like 1,000 ways to do this, and everybody has their own approach and own strategy and way of doing it. But this is what works for me. All right. So I grew up on AutoCAD. I was an AutoCAD user. I cut my teeth on this CAD platform, and this is what I still choose to use in order to laser cut. And the biggest reason is that waste management um, is absolutely amazing when it comes to using AutoCAD. All right. Some of you are using PDFs and so on. It's very hard to go out and share cut lines and do a lot of that stuff. And I can do all that editing within AutoCAD, and my waste is going to be minimal when compared to some other methods. So that's why I choose to use it, and that's why I do it. So, all right, let's go ahead and let's get started with this. So you can see I have my finger joint box here. This is from a couple episodes ago. I've also gone out there and I've engraved like the PLT logo on the front of it. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a drawing that I can now export out into AutoCAD. So in order to do that, what I'm going to be doing is switching this over into my drawing environment. I'm going to create a drawing from my design. I'm going to use my own custom title block, and I'm going to go ahead and say OK. Okay, so when this comes in, you can see the front's coming in. I want this to be a full 1-to-1 scale. So I'm going to go ahead and just drop that in there, and I'm going to say OK. All right, so obviously we can see we're going to need 6 sides of this box. There's not enough room within my sheet. So I'm going to come up here to my sheet, and I'm going to change my sheet size over to something ridiculously big like a D size, and I'm going to say okay. All right, and there is my front of my box now sitting on my D size. Now the thing is that, when it comes to my box, I only want the front to show. All right. And I'm seeing the entire assembly. So all you have to do is just come over here. Whatever you want to get rid of, you can simply hit here in the eyeball and then knock it out. Or what I can do is I can come over here, hold down shift, grab everything except for front. I can right click on it and say show hide. All right. So there's my front part. I'm now going to create another base view again. This time I'm going to be coming up here, going to my top view, placing that where it needs to go. And I'm going to say, okay. And now I'm going to come down here and just shut down everything except for top just by picking on show hide. And now it's just the top alone. I'm going to come here to my base view again, go over here to my right side. Okay, drop that where it needs to go. I'm going to scroll down and I'm just going to shut down everything except for my right side view, just like so. And now I'm going to come here to my base view. Okay, I'm going to come here to my bottom, place that where it needs to go, scroll down, and now I can shut down everything except for bottom. I'm going to continue on with this, going here to my left side. Okay, dropping that in. I'm going to say okay, scroll down, and I'm going to shut down everything except for my left. And then finally, I'm going to come here to my base view. Okay, and this needs to be my back. I'm going to drop that where it exactly needs to go, scroll down, and shut down everything, okay, except for back. All right, so I've just made an orthographic projection of my box. Okay, things are looking pretty good. So this is when I'm going to come out and do an export, and I'm going to export this out as a DXF. Okay, so it looks like it's going to be saving to my downloads, and I'm going to say that this is my finger joint box for TNT, and I'm going to do a save. All right, so my DXF has been exported out. This is the time when I'm going to be firing up AutoCAD, and I'm just going to simply come out here and open up, okay, my TNT finger joint box DXF. I'm going to say open. And this is what it's going to look like in our AutoCAD environment. All right, so the first thing I'm going to do is I'm just going to come out here and delete out, okay, my title block. I don't need any of that. Okay, and now I'm going to start setting up my environment. So the first thing I'm going to do is type in limits. I'm going to hit enter. My lower left corner, we're always going to keep it 0, 0. So I'm going to hit enter on that. And now my upper right hand corner, I'm going to be setting this up for the cutting envelope for my universal laser. So my cutting envelope is going to be 24 comma 12. So that's my X and my Y coordinate. I'm going to hit enter. And now I'm going to hit Z enter, A enter to do a zoom all for my limits. Okay, so the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to start setting up my layers. So I'm going to come up here and go to layer properties. And what I'm going to do first is I'm going to come in here to any layers that we have, and I'm going to turn off uh, their capability of actually printing. I'm just going in there and hitting on the printer. You can see that little sign saying it's no longer going to print. That's perfect. Now I'm going to create some new layers. So I'm going to right click and I'm going to say I want to create a new layer. I'm going to call this one cut. Okay. And once I create that new layer called cut, what I'm going to do is make sure it can print. And then I'm going to come here to my little white box. And I'm going to switch up the color on it. So when it comes to colors, all right, we have to make sure we are using index colors down here. So I'm going to say I want this to be a true red, and I'm going to say okay. So most lasers, anything that's going to be red, it's going to be a true cut. Okay, the next thing I'm going to do is leave my line type right where it's at with continuous, but my line weight, I'm going to say I want that to be a 0 millimeter line weight, and I'm going to say okay. Okay, so my cut layer has been created. Now I'm going to right click and say new layer again, but this time this one's going to be my engrave layer. Engrave on most, laser cutters is going to be blue. So I'm going to switch my red to a true blue color and I'm going to say, okay, it's a continuous line type and my line weight is sitting at 0, 0. All right, so we're looking good. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and close out of this. All right, so I'm going to scroll out here just a little bit. Now, what I like to do is actually just on the zero layer, and I can see I'm on the zero layer right now, is create a rectangle that needs to start at 0, comma 0. So I'm going to type in 0, comma 0 and hit enter. And now my dimensions, so I'm going to type in D for dimensions, is I'm going to put to the actual cutting envelope for my printer or for my cutter. So I'm going to say 24 is my X. I'm going to hit enter and 12 is my Y. I'm going to hit enter. And now I can just go ahead and place that exactly where it needs to be by just picking on the screen. Okay, and there we go. So, all right, so I'm sort of understanding what the limits of my actual laser cutter are. All right, so I'm gonna go ahead and just grab all this geometry here and hit M to move. And I'm going to place this, okay, inside that cutting envelope. All right, and now what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna start sort of getting things adjusted here. All right, so obviously I want all this, okay, to be on my cut layer. So I'm gonna just switch it to cut. But the thing is PLTW, I'm gonna switch this over to my zero layer. And we're gonna come back in later, okay, and make sure that that is going to be engraved. All right, so now we got to do some manipulation of our geometry. All right, we can see that these sides are lining up perfectly. The issue is if I moved this and put it right on top of this right here at this endpoint, that means we're going to have stacked geometry. I'm going to go ahead and delete that. We can still see that there's one there. Now, the issue with lasers is that we never want to stack geometry because if they are stacked, that means that that laser is going to go there twice. All right, you're going to get a bad burn, okay, on that line. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to come in here. Okay, I'm going to delete this and now I'm going to move this entire piece from this endpoint to this endpoint here. All right, and we can see now it is sharing the same cut line. All right, it's going to be the same thing here. So I'm going to go ahead and just move all this from here to this endpoint. Going to grab all this geometry, delete it, and now I'm going to move all this from this endpoint to this endpoint. All right, and now everything is just sort of matching up. Okay, I'm going to do the same thing up here, but the problem is that this line is not going to be lining up with this one. So I'm going to do a move. I'm going to select all my geometry and hit enter. And now I'm going to hold down shift, right click, and I'm going to use something called mid between 2 points. So I'm going to grab this point, and now it has found the midpoint, and I can just simply take this to the midpoint O snap right there. Okay, and I'm going to do the same thing for the other side. So M to move, select all this. Okay, shift right click, mid between 2 points. So that point and that point, find the midpoint, and I'm going to take it right here to the midpoint O snap. All right, so now this is all working together. We're looking good. All right, now I can go ahead and just do a move and I can place this down here towards the bottom left-hand corner. Okay. All right, so things are looking pretty good. Now, if you want to engrave, all right, if you just wanted these lines to engrave on the actual plywood, this is when you could switch this over and take this to engrave and it would engrave it. But a lot of people don't want that. A lot of people want to engrave what's on the inside of this. So if that's the case, all right, I'm going to keep all this on my zero layer. And now I'm going to be switching this over to my engrave layer. And now I'm going to type in hatch and hit enter. And I'm going to be picking on a solid hatch. I'm just going to go right here to the inside. that I want to engrave for all my letters. Oh, that didn't work. Let's do that again. So hatch here and here, and then let's do it again. Hatch, it's going to be a solid, and let's see if we can come here to the inside of it. There we go. We got it. All right, so now that is just going to engrave by itself. All right, so we have all of our layers set up. Okay, we have everything good. Looking at my layer properties, nothing is going to cut except for my red and my blue. All right, and then here's how I send this over to the laser. All right, I'm gonna come up here and go into print. I'm gonna be switching this over to my actual laser, which is my VLS 3.6. And then I'm going to be coming down here to what to plot. I'm going to be saying I want this to be a window. And I'm just going to pick on the top left hand endpoint and the bottom right endpoint. And now I can say my plot scale is going to be 1 inch equals 1 unit. Okay. I'm going to say that my plot style table needs to be AutoCAD. All right. And I think everything else is looking good. So let's go ahead and preview this. Okay. And that's exactly what's going to be sending over to my laser. So I'm going to right click on this and say plot. Okay, and now I'm going to jump over to my software for my laser. I'm going to open this up. All right, and this is what it is we're going to see. Okay, so I know my hatching is going to come over as black. That's not a big deal. All right, that's just going to be a raster. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to come here to my settings. This is for a universal laser, and I'd be coming out and going into natural. And I'd say I want this to be some sort of a wood. And I'm going to say this is a medium wood, and the plywood I'm going to be using is a birch plywood. So I'll select birch. Okay, and then my thickness, this is going to be 0.1875. I go into my settings here, and I'm just going to look at my manual control. So it looks like it didn't quite grab that. Let's do that again. Let's go into my settings, birch 0.1875, and let's go ahead and say okay on that. And now let's look at my settings. So we can see for my cut, it's recommending it's going to be 100% power at 5.4 speed. And then for my raster, it's going to be 100% power at 65% speed. All right. So it's one of those things with laser engraving. All right. Just always be ready for a sacrificial piece just to go out there and try it. And then you can sort of tweak from there. All right. So that's sort of the process that I use. A lot of you might be saying, well, then were you kind of talking about waste management? You're right. All right. I don't know if I would actually go out, if I was just making one of these, yeah, I would go out and create like this. But otherwise, if I'm making multiples of this, I'd be probably coming out and doing big batch cuts. All right. So let's take a look at that. All right. So I would be like copying this rectangle over. I'd be coming out and grabbing my design and copying that over. If I'm just wanting to do this piece multiple times, I can basically come out here and erase everything that I don't need other than that piece. All right. So I can now move this piece down to my bottom left-hand corner. All right. And then now what I'm going to do is use copy. And once again, we're going to be kind of looking at shared cut lines again, making sure not to have duplicates. So I'm just going to copy that geometry that you see highlighted. I'm going to come to this endpoint and now take it to this endpoint, this endpoint, this endpoint, this endpoint, this endpoint, this endpoint, and we're simply out of room. So everything is just matching up. We're looking good. Okay, I'm going to now come up here and grab all this geometry. Once again, we got to watch out for duplicates. Okay, and I'm going to have it share the same lines, and I'm just going to stack these on top of each other using my O snaps. Okay, and now we're getting a big batch there. Okay, so 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 times 3, that's 21 pieces just for that one side itself. Okay, now I understand this is going to be waste here on the outside, but who's to say we can't actually use that again for some other stuff that we're wanting to use? All right, but I mean, look at this. This is minimal waste. Okay, for this batch, we're nesting those parts. Okay, let's go ahead and do one more. Let's go ahead and copy this one down. And in this case, I'm just going to copy this down to here. Okay, I'm going to be tearing out what I don't need. All right, so I'm going to go with the front face on this one just to get that PLTW logo. Okay, and moving that into place. Okay, and once again, we can go ahead and do a copy. And now we can come out here and start copying these endpoint to endpoint. We got one more to go, so we'll drop that in. Okay, and now I can go ahead and grab all the geometry here at the top. Looks like I didn't grab it all. Let's do it one more time. And we will say copy on that. Endpoint up to endpoint to endpoint, and I have my 3 rows there. Okay, so you can see we're nesting parts. Okay, we're getting some nice batches on this. Once again, if I want to come out and I want a 3D or a 3D print, if I want to laser cut this, all I'm going to do is come up here, go into print. Okay, I'm going to be saying I want this to be my laser. I want this to be 1 to 1. What the plot is going to be my window. And all I have to do is come out here, pick my endpoints of my window. Okay, my AutoCAD plot style table, we're good to go. I'm gonna go ahead and hit apply and preview this out. Okay, that's looking good. I can right click and say plot. That's now been sent over to my laser. Okay, and now I'm looking at my new design. I can go into settings. Okay, come here to natural, go into my wood, go into my medium wood. I want this to be birch. My thickness on this is 0.1875, so I can hit apply. Okay, and now looking here in my manual control, these are the recommended settings from Universal for my particular laser. Okay, all right, and that's what it is going to do. All right, that's how it would look. All right, so like I said, there's multiple ways of doing this. This is my way of doing it. Like I said, I was an AutoCAD power user for all those years. I cut my teeth on it. I have a really easy way of just coming out and editing and sort of modifying and manipulating these files. But waste management, all right, is going to be very minimum with this method. You can get a lot of bang for your buck if you're using just cheap plywood, like 3/16 plywood. I can run into Home Depot or wherever I can buy it, and I can get a lot out of that wood. And even the waste that's left over, all right. I mean, I still have these 2 borders here. All right, I could use those later on for some other projects if I needed to. So, all right, that's a look at my strategy and my way of doing some laser cutting, coming from Fusion into AutoCAD and sending over to my laser. So there you go. I'll see you next week for a new TNT Tuesday. All right, good luck. Have fun. See ya.